Bob, like all of the people that come in to talk in the course, these people are volunteers, and more importantly, they are actually doing what they're talking about. They either have done it or are doing it, and I know Bob is in the middle of actually doing it again. So this is real for them, and it's a great opportunity for you to hear from people who have been through the ringer a few times, I guess so.
Oh yeah, I'm at least 2 years older than I was 6 months ago.
And with that, Bob, let me get you started. And there you go.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. Joe is good enough to send me the samples of the sheets that some of you filled out where you talked about who you are and why you're taking this course, and it was pretty impressive. It's not just a casual endeavor for everybody in the room. Some of you actually seem to be taking this seriously, but forgive me if I don't have a real sense of the census here. So how many of you are considering or seriously going to participate in the 100K business plan competition? Okay. How many of you are considering making your living in entrepreneurship one day? Wow. And how many of you are actually doing that now? Okay, there's medication available for you all after today's class. Joe's right. It's not clear whether this is a gift or an affliction. It sort of might submerge for a year or two and then pop back up again. So I propose this evening to try and offer you a couple of tips on finding your customers, maybe succeeding with your business. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories of things I've done because I'm going to filter my observations through the lenses of what I have done, for better or for worse. There will be times when I'll express strong opinions, but I promise you that you are not hearing the Word of God. It's just my thoughts that I could well be wrong. And we don't have a cast of thousands here tonight, so I do intend to engage you in this conversation, and just to give all of you an early dose of stage fright, there's a reason why there's 2 microphones on those stands over there. Also, certain of your seats are wired, so if I see you nodding off, you'll get a little jolt here and there. Okay, my background, I should tell you first, it begins with a 12-step program because I did go to school, and it required a recovery program afterwards. I also had some proper training in a couple of multinational, multi-billion-dollar companies. Went on to start 3 companies in the medical nutrition business. More on that momentarily. I took a hiatus from that because I got recruited to turn around a company in the soy foods and beverages business that had lost money for 23 consecutive years. You can only do that if Grandpa writes a check every year to his daughter and says, "It's okay, honey, you can continue to conquer America." One day Grandpa died, and the board of directors said, so I was recruited not because I knew anything about the business the company was in. I was recruited because the startup experience indicated that I was not afraid of a blank sheet of paper. And indeed, all of the things that the company had been doing, well, maybe not all of them, many of them were fundamentally flawed. I took a little break after that and spent a couple years at a boutique consulting firm doing management consulting, thinking probably foolishly that it would be gratifying to try and use some of these experiences to help people grow their businesses. But reference our earlier remarks about entrepreneurship being something that you never quite recover from due to a fundamental flaw in my wiring, perhaps yours. I'm off doing it again. So yes, raising capital, writing business plans, all of that stuff. couple of years ago, the Wall Street Journal published a study of companies that had gone through the last recession and sort of divided those that succeeded and those that failed into a couple of columns and determined that really those that succeeded went one of two ways. They either became cost leaders, this is not you, or they became innovators, focused on building a brand. And if you're going to be an innovator, you have to answer a fundamental question, which is how is your end user dissatisfied? Now, this institution is properly called an Institute of Technology, and many of you think that what we must be talking about is artificial intelligence heuristics or something otherwise incomprehensible. It could be as simple as there are 50 kids in town who want a bicycle and there's no bicycle shop. But if you can answer the question, how is your end user dissatisfied, that's the basis of an opportunity. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. I ended up stuck in Omaha one night, fogged in at the airport. And so I did what any sensible individual would do in that situation, which was I had found a bar. And yes, the consumption function was just a long history of substance abuse. And I'm sitting in the bar, and I ended up shooting the breeze with this guy sitting there next to me. Well, what do? Well, it turned out he brought a women's hockey team. That's not true, women's basketball team to Omaha. And I said, how the hell did you decide that Omaha needed a women's basketball team? He said, well, I was here on a business trip, and I noticed this line going around a block, and I followed it. And I went around the block to see where it went, and it went to a movie theater that was showing Smokey the Bandit 2. I thought, this town badly needs some entertainment. So how is your end user dissatisfied? It doesn't have to be technology. It can be a whole variety of things, but it's pretty fundamental to starting a business. So remember I said this is not the voice of God, it's just my strong opinion, but I believe that your business will not prosper. It might survive, but it will not prosper until you know what are you really selling. You might think you're selling toothpaste, but really what you're selling is a sexy smile. Who wants what you're really selling? And how do you find them? Because as people who are running startups, you can't afford to go out and broadcast the benefits of what you've got to the world at large. You need to turn that telescope around and say, how do I find the people who want what I've got? That's going to be the thrust of a lot of what I talk about in the next little while. How does this affect raising capital? How many of you in here have raised capital before? A couple of you. Good. It's a salutary experience. It's not uncommon for people who first encounter investors to think these guys believe they're masters of the universe. But really one of their fundamental emotions isn't mastery, it's fear. Because they made 10 investments last year and 8 of them failed. And when they talk to you, they don't know if you're going to succeed or not. Now, you guys are going to impressive institutions. I got to tell you, smart is way overrated. Smart is helpful. If you think smart is all you need, you're wrong. In fact, you'd be way better off being lucky than being smart. And just because you're smart does not mean you won't fail. And these people know that. So what they're trying to do is figure out, do you have a prayer of succeeding? And those of them who've been at it for a while know that there is one non-negotiable requirement, and that's customers. You don't have to be smart, you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be good looking. If you've got customers, people will think you're smart, you will become rich, and if you become rich enough, people will think you're good looking. So they end up asking, do you have any customers? Will you have any customers? Come to think of it, do you even know that you need them? And then there's some block and tackle questions, like how are you going to get them? How much are they worth? Will you spend $5 to find a customer who's worth $3? Oops. How many do you need? How long will it take you to get them? All of these things affect your financing requirements. So there's two descriptors that you'd like to have. You'd like to have something that's unique, and you'd like to have something that's important, because that's the sweet spot. Now, we could probably argue that air is important, but by most descriptions, it falls low on the unique axis. Now, what I'm about to say may traumatize a few of you, but we could probably argue that MIT decals are unique, but for many people, they are not important. Yet there are successful businesses selling both of those. So give me an example of when you would pay for air. Sorry? Thank you. If you're 100 feet down in the kelp beds off of Catalina Island and your watch says you got 3 minutes left, spend a lot for air. By the way, there's a corporation out there. You know that bubble wrap stuff that you get such a kick out of popping when you're sort of neurotic? That company is called Sealed Air Corporation. $6 billion in annual sales. Okay, what about MIT decals? Well, how about the Bank of M&D, Mom and Dad? So the point, forget all the tongue-in-cheek stuff. Figure out who's going to find your offering to be both important and unique. So don't get so enraptured by your own technology that you're seduced. Figure out who's going to find it important and unique. Figure out how to find them. Figure out how to tell them about your offering and take their order. That's a bit simplistic, but it's linear. You guys with me so far? Question? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, say again?
Are you going to be providing the slides as well?
Am I going to be providing these slides? Joe, am I providing this?
If you'd like,
Yes. Okay, here's a question for you. What happens if you can't meet those first two requirements? Here's a hint. I gave you the answer a couple slides ago. Your business will not. Thank you. Now, I presume you're not doing it just because you like self-flagellation. Prosperity is appealing. Okay, I promised you a couple of examples of things that I did. Here's one. I got recruited to join a company in California that had been doing $200 million in annual revenues for 12 straight years. And an entrepreneur bought the company in a leveraged buyout with Alex Brown. And he said, what I want to do is jack it up 50% in 3 years, from 200 million to 300 million, and take it public so that I personally can make a fortune. So here's a little stock for you. Here's a little stock for you. Here's a little stock for you. I believe we all now have common incentives. Everybody's motivated. I was running the clinical nutrition division, which I knew nothing about prior to getting there. I had to do some studying so that I could talk about branched-chain amino acids and hepatic encephalopathy while talking to physicians. But that division made a pile of money. We would make a liter of solution for $3 and sell it for $70. So I was responsible for a great percentage of the company's gross profit, and we were on track to go public. And I have this bad habit of going out into the marketplace, and I did that and discovered the distressing news that this business was about to go away. There was something coming called managed care, and it was going to kill this business. Well, I felt bad about this. I felt bad personally because I had some stock. Mrs. Jones likes it when I make money rather than lose money. And of course, I didn't want to let our company and my colleagues down. So I said, well, I feel some obligation to try and do something about this. maybe I can do something here which could reposition the corporation. If I succeed, I believe I will be the first person in the country who's ever actually tried this. But the bad news is there's no model for success. That, by the way, should raise alarms in you. It did not raise alarms in me, but it should have. So, because I had worked at Baxter in the dialysis business, I knew something about renal failure, and at the time there were 400,000 dialysis patients, rapidly growing market, tragic for our healthcare system, but it was rapidly growing. And these folks all go 3 times a week to one of 1,300 dialysis centers around the country, all of which are published in a federal registry. So I know where they are, and I can reach them. One of the things that your kidneys do for you is allow you to eliminate fluids. When they fail, you can't casually drink one of those water bottles that so many of us carry around. You're considered to be fluid restricted. But for other reasons, other functions that your kidneys perform, you typically become clinically malnourished, and you need a nutrition supplement. And the nutrition supplements at the time were things like Ensure, all of which were liquids. So I looked at this and said, well, this is a big duh. There's something wrong here. That's obviously bad for fluid-restricted customers. Why don't we make something that's high in what they ought to have and low in what they ought not to have and doesn't have any liquid? In other words, a little candy bar, a nutrition bar. We had the technology to do that. We named it. We had a first question because we were ethical. Does it work? So we ran a clinical trial. Those of you from California know Kaiser Permanente. We ran a trial with those guys. We got the results published in the archives of the National Kidney. Yes, it worked. Cool. So we know how to do this. These patients see a doctor and they see a dietitian. Was it something I said? And we know how to identify the hierarchy in these marketplaces. You know, this is sort of the evangelical market if you've ever worked in the medical arena. There's God, there are the apostles, they first spread the word. Let's go talk to God. So we called up the various gods, and we said, I'd like to describe an idea for you and get your reactions. We described the idea, and most of them were, God, I wish I'd thought of that. What a bodacious idea. Well, how many of your patients would you recommend this for? All of them. Really? How many days a week would you suggest they take this product? 7? Really? How do you feel about $3 a bar? Like it? Whoa. We said, geez, we have potentially a highly profitable $80 million business here. How does it stack up to the competition? Well, that's obvious. So we did our market projections. I sold the notion to the corporation. Let's go where we've never gone before, boldly, of course. Let's develop the marketing materials. Let's haul the sales force in, tell them about the commission plan, walk them through it, get the contract manufacturer to make it, and let's go to market. And I ran right into a buzzsaw. It was awful. So what did I do wrong? I'm sorry, I heard somebody say it tasted bad. Well, that's a pretty reasonable speculation. It turned out that to our palate it tastes pretty good. But we didn't have kidney failure. And one of the things that happens when your kidneys fail is your palate changes. And protein, which was one of the components, tastes like spoiled meat. Oops. Okay, what else? That's a small problem relative to the larger ones, the larger mistakes that we made. Yes, sir?
Well, there's certainly a great variety of energy bars already out there.
At the time, there were not. Good speculation, but power bar, et cetera, had not yet been created. So that competition was not the issue. You have a speculation?
Yeah, I didn't talk to doctors.
We didn't, no, au contraire. We did talk to doctors. That, in fact, was part of the problem. Yes, sir. Beg your pardon? Too expensive. Well, not for the doctors we talked to. We're getting warm, aren't we? Yes, sir.
To or pilot the patient, the actual
Oh my God, you may hereby waive the remainder of the course. That's exactly right. We talk to the clinicians. They don't buy it and they don't eat it. This isn't like an injection or a pill. You have to buy this bad boy and eat the damn thing and like it enough to come back and do it again. Oops. And when we finally talked to the patients, they didn't want it, and to somebody's point, they couldn't afford it. Well, why didn't they want it? Well, who gets kidney failure? 44% of them get there from a lifetime of mismanaging their diabetes. 33% of them get there from a lifetime of mismanaging their high blood pressure. So 3/4 of my prospective customers have neglected themselves for their whole life. Why would they change that today? Furthermore, when it turns out you're going to be tethered to a dialysis machine for 3 or 4 hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, some well-meaning social worker says, well, obviously you can't work. I'm putting you on public aid. Now you don't have any money. And if you do, you'll probably spend it on beer and cigarettes rather than on my product. There was one final flaw. Business I was in sold to hospitals. I didn't stop to think about where are they going to go to buy this thing. Hospitals don't carry it. This is a retail pharmacy item. How many of you have ever dealt with retail distribution in a pharmacy? Okay, well, here's a little lesson. I couldn't understand why I kept getting people laughing at me. I would say to the retail pharmacist, I'd say, I have a brand new product that you've never heard of from a company you've never heard of that deals with a medical condition you've never dealt with, and I'd like you to put it on your shelf. You know, how do you spell fat chance? Finally, one of them said, Bob, this foot of shelf space, I carry Crest toothpaste on this foot of shelf space. And I have algorithms that will tell me within a couple dollars each month how much revenue this foot of shelf space is going to generate. Now, if I take that Crest toothpaste off of there and put your product on, I don't want to lose any money. So don't go to any trouble, just get out your checkbook. It's $1 million a quarter, it's 6% of your top line revenues, and it's a guaranteed sale. So anything that doesn't sell, I'm returning to you for a full refund. How's that sound? Well, this was not the best day of my life. They call it slotting fees. That's another name for extortion. So, meanwhile, I was employed. I was not yet an entrepreneur in this sense. I was what was fashionable at the time to call an intrapreneur. That meant I had somebody else's signature on my paycheck. Well, we were trying to show Wall Street we were a good candidate for a public offering. And if we succeeded, the people I worked with and I would realize a significant financial gain from our stock. And my shortfall jeopardized that. And we had these senior management meetings once a month. I was privileged to be part of senior management. We'd have to stand up, report on our results. So, Bob, your forecast for this month for Regain was 400,000. How'd you do? 32. Excuse me? Yes, it was like a slow motion train wreck. And it just went on and on and on. We'd say, well, you know, it's a little slower getting started than we expected. Give it another month. Well, it's still a little slower getting started than we expected. In fact, I'm dying of old age. It was dreadful. So, we learned about how to reach some of these renal dietitians and so forth via inside sales. We learned about the publications for the 25% of the patients who'd had a car accident or scarlet fever or some other cause for their renal failure. I said, well, doggone it, somebody will pay for this. Let's talk about Medicaid. Now, you may know that Medicare takes care of you if you're old. It's a federal program. Medicaid takes care of you if you're broke. It's a state program. What do you think are the chances that Florida has the same rules as Georgia? Nah. We got it reimbursed in 40 states, which was almost as much fun as 40 root canals. I said, this is just a god-awful way to make a living. And I found an outfit that specialized in selling products to renal patients, sold it to them, the crown jewel in their collection because it had clinical trial behind it, and we escaped intact. We didn't lose any money, we didn't make any money, but we got out of it okay. And yes, thanks to some overperformance in the other segments of the business I was managing, we did successfully go public and I escaped the doghouse. But it ruined a year of my life. Remember what I said about smart's way overrated. Okay, question, yes sir. Thanks for the public humiliation.
So there's a lot of reasons to fail, right? Like when you're doing something. So
I'm sorry, say again?
So I'm saying there is potentially a lot of reasons to fail if you start a business. And how would you avoid this if you knew that you would fail? Or like you can potentially fail?
Hold that thought. I gave him $1 to ask this question, by the way. We rehearsed this in advance of class. Let me tell you example number 2. You had a question? Go ahead.
Just very briefly, could you talk a little bit about what you meant by learn inside sales?
We wanted to be able to influence those people who are going, we wanted to influence the influencers. So, if I am her patient and I come in 3 times a week and she says, Bob, I have something here that brings dead people back to life. You should try it. I'm more likely to try it if she recommends it than if I just see an infomercial, right? So we wanted to learn how to reach the influencers, and being able to afford a mobile, out on the road, human being sales force was prohibitively expensive. But we learned how to do it on the phone. In low-class applications, you would call it telemarketing. The people who call you at dinner time and want to sell you a magazine. We called it inside sales because we trained these people in the clinical stuff, and they would call and be able to speak the language. We had databases set up so they could build relationships, and I will elaborate on that in the next couple of slides. So, in a triumph of entrepreneurship over common sense, I went off and did 2 more of these things. They did a little better, and I ended up getting a call from a group of docs at Harvard Med School. Do you want to start a company together? No, absolutely not. There's nobody worse to start a company with than a bunch of doctors, especially smart ones. But I like you guys. Let's go have a tequila and hang out for a while. So one thing led to another, and they found some seed capital and said, let's try again, and I took them up on it. So I moved to Boston. I was living in Southern California. This required probably the most exuberant sales pitch of my life to my wife, who said, wait a minute, it snows there. So we hooked up with these scientists. We looked over all the things that their research lab was going on and said, well, you know what? None of the things you're working on is going to turn into a business in less than 3 years. We best come up with something new. And since we have 1 employee, let's figure out something that's big enough that it'll attract some attention, small enough that we can manage it with no money and no staff. How you feel about diabetes? Oh, we like diabetes. Okay, well, at the time, there were 10 million people diagnosed with diabetes at the time. Today, by the way, that number is 19 million. 26 million total. 7 million don't know that that's why they have those symptoms. It's manageable, but most science suggests that it's not curable. Typically, if you practice tight control, as it's called, you take 3 small meals a day, 3 small snacks a day, regular injections of insulin, and the idea is to restrict the bandwidth of that fluctuation of your blood glucose. There's 4 million of these folks that were using insulin to keep their blood sugar down. Everybody was paying attention to what happens if your blood sugar is too high. I said, does anybody care what happens if it goes too low? Well, a little background. If your blood glucose is too high and it stays that way for too long, it's a major cause of blindness, kidney failure, and amputation of your extremities. Catastrophic for the patient, and for what it's worth, expensive for our healthcare system. And the tight control I just described dramatically reduces that hyperglycemia, but it triples the incidence of low blood glucose. And when your blood glucose drops too low, you got to treat it right away or you faint. It can be really bad if you're stuck in one of those epic Southern California traffic jams. And if it should happen to you at night, you can lapse from being asleep to being in a coma. So, most of these folks, what they do is take a large injection of insulin at night and eat a big nighttime snack, hoping that the one will titrate against the other. But it doesn't work, because all of the things in their snack convert to glucose at about the same time. So the spike is higher, but the duration is no longer. Translation, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, the food runs out and the insulin's still working. That's a problem. So there's constant anxiety trying to figure out what to do about this regimen. And if the person with diabetes in your family is your 7-year-old son, Jeff, you have epic battles at night with Jeff trying to make him eat a nighttime snack that's going to make it through the night. So apple slices plus peanut butter, and it's like, Ma, why am I doing this? So we held some focus groups. And after a while, I lost patience with the moderator and had a temper tantrum and threw him out and went in and sat in front of the people myself and said, well, we've been talking for a while. Why don't we knock off the politeness? Tell me what your greatest fear is. And they all sort of said, well, geez, really, I worry the most that I will die in my sleep. I mean, half the time I sleep in a chair in the living room for fear that if I get too deeply asleep, I'll never wake up. We said, wow, that's compelling. So we created a product to address this. We put in 3 basic nutrients that would convert into glucose separate times through the evening: sucrose, protein, uncooked cornstarch. We called it timed release glucose, designed to reduce the incidence of low blood sugar without causing high blood sugar. Yes, by the way, we were able to patent it. So those ingredients are in a birthday cake. But if you use those ingredients and you say diabetes, you're violating my patent. Why do you think we gave it a non-medical name and non-medical packaging? Yes, sir.
In the previous company?
Well, I learned a lot from the mistakes I made from my previous venture. But there's a more direct answer. Yes, sir.
People who suffer from this are sick and tired of medicines and dealing with the whole regimen every day. They don't want to think about it when they use nighttime.
Boy, that's very close. That's very close. Philip.
You know, your son's erratic with food life and Shaw, so you don't have to sell to, you can sell
I'm going to stop you right there, Philip. I decided under no circumstances was I going to sell it to grocery stores. And I'll explain that in a moment. You're on the right track. Let me come back to this man up here. What I did learn from the Regain fiasco was that I ought to talk to my customers. Thank you. I was going down this path where I was arm wrestling with the FDA and the FTC. I wanted to be able to say it's effective for diabetes on the packaging. And finally one day a couple of them said, Bob, if you put diabetes, the word diabetes on the package, I won't buy it. And the reason for that is because if I'm sitting in a room like this and I need one of these things, it's nobody else's business whether or not I have diabetes. I don't like being called a diabetic. I am a lawyer. I am an engineer. I happen to have this medical condition, but I'm managing it. And it's nobody's damn business whether or not I have it. So I don't want anybody to know that I'm medicating. So we said, well, geez, that's pretty compelling. Here we were about to go through all kinds of pain and suffering to put the very word on there that would have killed our business. Oops. This time, however, we listened to our, thank you, And we gave it a non-medical name. We gave it electric blue packaging, called it for the nutritional management of hypoglycemia. And believe it or not, we started selling some to marathon runners. So there was sort of an elite energy bar kind of positioning. So we talked to clinicians, parents, patients. We held focus groups. We went to support group meetings. We picked an ad agency that knew this field. Now, a lot of times, if you picked up a magazine for diabetes, the back cover, the expensive ad, full page blow up, hypodermic needle. Oh, makes me all warm. Why? Well, my needle is sharper than his needle. It won't hurt as much. I thought, we can do better than that. We created ads with flying pigs and some really corny copy. To sleep, perchance to dream. You can sleep through the night. We eventually learned that what we were selling was security. All right, so the agency came up with this totally lame copy about one bite and the rest is easy. Dry, I know, but people got it. So we started running ads with these flying pigs with a little violator across the corner of the ad that said, for a free sample, call our 800 number. When we started getting 100 calls a day, we had to get more phones. There were 3 of us companies, Joe will remember these days, jammed into one little ratty space at 238 Main Street in Kendall Square, above what at the time was the drugstore. There's a floral shop and a post office there now. All right, at 200 calls a day, we said, Jesus, we better hire some people to answer the phone. So we went out into Kendall Square with a mirror, and we held it under people's noses, and if it fogged up, we offered them a job. At 300 calls a day, we installed a database. We said, God, we're running out of cheesy little index cards. We better put a database in so we can track these people. At 500 calls a day, we said, God, we better rent some tables and some chairs and put in some stuff, and maybe we better train. We might actually be on to something here. So we hired and trained our inside sales force. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you how I did this, but we penetrated all of the major pharmacy chains, and we were stocked in all of the major wholesalers, and our total for slotting fees, 0. For you, this may not be a big deal. Most people in the industry say, no, that's just not possible. But we did it. The lesson, oh, wait, I owe you $1. She said, how? I'll tell you. But the lesson first. This time, we understood our customers. All right, this was my 4th product, so please don't think that I jumped in one transcendental experience from the disaster to the success. It wasn't true. All right, it was a game of inches. But listening to our customer helped us invent a better product and build a better business. Yes, sir?
I don't really know anything about diabetes, but how does it
Be glad.
know that once you have the bar that has been successful, when you have the kind of glucose that you need?
I'm sorry, ask your question again.
Once somebody tries the product, how do they know that it has been successful and what they're looking for, they're satisfied?
All right, let me repeat his question. How did the consumer know that the product worked? Is that a fair paraphrase? Well, there's a facile answer. Did you eat the bar last night? Yes. Did you wake up dead this morning? No. Well, then it must have worked. And it wasn't quite that easy. They'd take their blood glucose routinely, and it would frequently be quite elevated when they'd first wake up in the morning because, quite low, pardon me, because the insulin was still working and the food ran out. They'd wake up in the morning with this, and it was in the normal range. And that's not statistically extrapolatable, but you know what? If you're worried about your own health, you don't care about that. Did it work for me? Becomes the question. And we had a lot of people quite satisfied and a most impressive reorder rate. So how did we get into these retail channels, you ask? All right. Well, what would happen when the phone would ring? I have to tell you, somewhere in our copy, we said something to the effect that this had a sort of a fudge brownie-like taste. and the word got out on some message board someplace that we were giving away free fudge. So some percentage of those incoming phone calls were not from our customers or not from people who were destined to be our customers. So we had to take up asking qualifying questions. What brand of insulin do you typically use? And if we got, we'd say, well, sorry, I'm afraid we don't have anything for you. If we got the right answers, we sure enough would send them a free sample. Enter all this stuff in the database with little prompts, call them back. Did you get it? Tell me your reaction. Do you guys know the difference between open-ended questions and closed-ended questions? Closed-ended question is, did you like it? No. Oops, now what? Open-ended question is, well, what were your reactions? I didn't like the taste at all. Okay, what else? Well, it worked great. I'd like to order some more. Okay, so we asked open-ended questions, and we'd say, well, we're offering free shipping for the time being. Can we send you some? Would you care to order today? And they would. We'd enter it into the database. When the little prompt popped up a few days later, we'd say, aren't you about out? Isn't it time to reorder? This was a labor-intensive activity. All right? This was hard work.
Bob, were they paying for the reorder?
Oh, yes. In fact, they didn't pay for the original sample, but they paid for the first order. Tire kickers were booted out when we told them we needed money. Okay, so after a while, we took up saying, well, free shipping is coming to a close. We can continue to sell this to you and charge you $5 for shipping and handling, or we can simply see to it that it's at the pharmacy where you buy your insulin. They'd say, oh, well, geez, I may as well just pick it up when I buy my insulin. And we'd say, well, great. Where's the pharmacy? They'd say, oh, well, I usually buy my stuff at Hadzima's Pharmacy. And we'd say, awesome. Can we call Hadzima's Pharmacy? You bet. In fact, I've got his number right here. Tell Joe that I've been buying from him for 12 years and I want him to stock this product. You got it. Now, if you ever looked in a busy pharmacy, most of the time when they answer the phone, it's like this. Pharmacy. You have about 12 seconds. Mr. Hadzima, we've been selling some of our product for diabetes to 4 of your customers. They'd like to buy it from you now, and you don't have it. Do you have a second? What? Who is this? And we tell them what we've got. How can we solve this problem? They'd say, well, I can't buy it from you, not without corporate approval. We'd say, we understand that, but we also suspect that there's a threshold below which you can buy without corporate approval. It's probably $100. Well, that's exactly right. You'll be pleased to know that our starter kit costs 99 bucks. So we'd take their first order, and then we would call up Mabel and say, Mabel, we're happy to report that Hadzima's Pharmacy's got the product. Why don't you get your young buns in there and buy it immediately? And she would say, well, all right. And then we would call Mr. Hadzima back and say, we just want to make sure that the product arrived. And he'd say, well, hold on. I said, holy smokes, it's already sold. We'd say, really? Imagine that. Well, we better set you up on some kind of automatic order, and we probably need an approved vendor number from your corporate headquarters, and right? And pretty soon, we were in all these pharmacies. And nobody ever said you have to pay to get on our shelves. So what gave us that negotiating power? Thank you. You're going to get really tired of this question by the end of the night. Yes, sir?
Did you guys anticipate this strategy early enough to put it in a business plan?
I'm sorry, did we what?
Did you anticipate this strategy early enough to put it in a business plan?
No, we absolutely did not. But in my current company and its business plan, yes. We were making this up as we went along. But we spent a lot of time talking to our consumers and to the retailers to figure out what the barriers were going to be and what we needed to do to get over it. All right, there's a question here. Who influences your customers and how do you get to them? I needed a sales force, and I couldn't afford one. But, yes, sir?
Did you ever sell through online channels?
Did I ever sell?
Through online channels?
No, not at the time. Online commerce was just beginning at the time. So we had to sort of go brute force. All right, our patients who, back up. This is going to sound crass, and I hope I don't offend any of you regarding either yourselves or your relatives, but there's some percentage of people out there who have diabetes that simply have a death wish. They do not take care of themselves. And I cannot afford, or could not at the time afford, to try to build a business around them. There was too much persuasion, too much expense required. So how did I go about finding those people who were spending money to take care of themselves? Answer, they are seeing a clinician and paying for advice. So can I reach the clinician? Well, there's 15,000 certified diabetes educators in the country, and 12,000 of them are members of, surprisingly enough, the American Association of Diabetes Educators. They have a tab on their website that says locate an educator. You type in a zip code, out comes the list and all their contact information. Time to call them up. So, many of them have a meeting once a month, Saturday afternoon. They haul in everybody in their practice and talk about new developments and fuss at them. Don't forget to do this. And if you actually talk to some of these educators and say, what's your greatest professional frustration? The one-word answer, compliance. They don't do what I tell them to do. Okay. Well, the smart-ass scientists I work with at Harvard have invented a little fudge-like candy bar that mitigates the risk of nocturnal hypoglycemia. We'd love to tell you a little bit about it, and I would rattle off. And Dolly and Debbie and Dina all told us that their patients love it. Can I tell you a little bit about this? You bet. I understand that many of you or colleagues, probably you, have a meeting on Saturdays where you bring in all of your patients and you talk about new developments. Yep, that's right. I've got the next one coming up in a week and a half. Have you completely filled out the agenda yet? Nope, I'm still looking. Well, if I hurry up and get some of this stuff to you and you like it, is it something you might talk about with your patients? Absolutely. I mean, I got to like the science, I got to like the product, but bring it on. Well, we will. Now, if you like it and if you tell your patients about it, you know they're going to ask you 3 questions. How's it taste? How much does it cost? And where am I going to get it? We can answer the first question. Tastes like fudge. How much does it cost? It's $1 a bar. The third question we need your help with. Where do you usually send them? Ah, well, I usually send them to Tony's drugstore. Can I call Tony and tell him that next Saturday afternoon you're going to talk about this to how many? 40? 40 of your patients. And some of them are going to want to come looking for the product and that he ought to have it in stock. You bet. In fact, tell Tony to get his raggedy ass in here and he can stand up at my meeting and talk to him himself and tell him, come on down to my store because I got the product and I sure need the money. Tony, I just got off the phone. I think I made a sale for you. I just got off the phone talking to Debbie about her upcoming diabetes meeting and blah, 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 blah. And pretty soon, we were stocked. So we ended up with a high-quality sales force working for us for free because of the satisfaction they got of bringing good health to their patients with something with which those patients would comply. And nobody ever mentioned slotting fees. Why not? What did we have? Thank you. Hard work, but I'm telling you exactly how we did it. And it saved us millions of dollars. Okay, pharmacies don't like to buy from individual companies. Joe.
One fact you mentioned to me about this was that actually diabetic patients are very valuable to pharmacies.
Oh, yeah.
And that was also, maybe you want to...
Part of what made these patients so attractive to the retailers, thank you, Joe, for the prompt, About 3% of the people in the U.S. have diabetes, and they're responsible for just under 25% of retail pharmacy purchases. So they're worth way more on a per capita basis than most of us who just run in and buy toothpaste and a greeting card and leave. So if I would say I have X number of patients with diabetes, they would think, well, there's a large multiplier effect on what those patients are worth. So that helped turn up the heat. Yes, sir? That we knew. We built that into our business plan. Once we figured out what was going on, that we knew. Yes, sir?
That's the reason for not doing grocery stores, because the complications of that.
In our focus groups, wherein we talk to our customers, we said, now that we've described this to you and told you what it does, write down, don't say anything out loud because I don't want you influencing her, write down how much you would expect to pay for this and where you would expect to buy it. And pass the sheet of paper up front. Same product, right? Fell into two columns. Grocery store, 59 cents. Pharmacy, $1.25. Grocery store, 59 cents. Pharmacy, 99 cents. Grocery store, 59 cents. So, well, call me silly. I like pharmacies. And then I did some digging. Your expectation when you walk into a grocery store is it's going to be inexpensive, it's probably not going to be good for you, and it's going to taste great. When you walk into a drugstore, your expectations, this is a horrible oversimplification, of course, but it's probably going to be more expensive, probably will be more good for you, and it probably won't taste so good. The right profile for where we should be. But if you walk into a little CVS and there's 8,000 stock keeping units, SKUs in the trade in there, they don't like getting 8,000 invoices each month. So they buy from wholesalers who take all that stuff in, aggregate it, deliver it, send them one invoice. And the wholesaler deals with everything else. Yes, they take a piece of the profit margin, but that's business. So the pharmacies, after a while, said, well, it's just really annoying having to do business with you guys when you're not stocked carried by our wholesaler. Well, we thought getting into pharmacies was going to be hard. Getting into wholesalers was really hard. So finally we said, maybe we can do something with this trade show that's coming up in New Orleans. So we called the 25 Walgreens that were closest to where this trade show for diabetologists was going to be. Told them we were going to have a booth there and said some percentage of the people who come to our booth are going to come to your store looking for this product. We'd like to ship you some. If it doesn't sell, throw it in the trash. We'll send you your money back. All of them went for it. We said, great. Which wholesaler do you use? We called up the wholesaler and said, we made a sale for you to these 25 Walgreens. We sold the product to them at 75 cents a bar. We're going to sell it to you for 67 cents a bar. We've already made the sale. We're going to take care of the shipping. All we want to do with you is send you the paperwork, have you send them an invoice, and send us our piece of the money when it gets done. So you don't have to do any work. Just take the money. What we want is for you to put us in your system so that when these people get ready to reorder, we can tell them your wholesaler now carries this product. That worked. And we had one sort of comical event that popped up. We got a piece of mail one day from a major pharmacy chain headquartered in Clearwater, Florida, saying if you want to be in our planogram, who knows what a planogram is? Yes, ma'am, what is it?
It's the plan of like how many facings of each product and stuff.
There are places that have mock stores set up, and it's how many feet of shelf space up here for this, how much goes down here. It's a whole layout so that if you walk into 25 stores, there's a roughly similar arrangement. If you want to be in the planogram, come to Clearwater, Florida for a 15-minute meeting with so-and-so. Say, what? So I called a few friends in the industry, and I said, who is this guy? His name was Jeff. They said, well, Jeff's got to sit there for an entire week listening to one 15-minute presentation after another. I thought, man, I thought I was having a bad day. How is Jeff evaluated? Jeff is evaluated on how much money he can extort from these vendors that come in. Got it. So, well, let's go anyway. So 2 of us went down there, and we're sitting in the lobby, and there's vendors all over the place sitting in their little chairs with signs and posters and end caps and all sorts of stuff, and we're just sort of sitting there with a briefcase, feeling a little silly. But when our time came, we went in, and I said, Jeff, this isn't going to be like any other 15-minute pitch you've gotten this week because we don't have any money. We're not going to give you a nickel. But I'm going to take 5 minutes and tell you who we are, 5 minutes to tell you about our product, and 5 minutes and tell you why you want it in your stores. And he said, well, it's your 15 minutes, sport. Go for it. And he sort of... And I pulled out some paper. I said, Jeff, this printout is of the customers we've been dealing with in the states where you have stores. These are people with diabetes. There's 10,000 of them. I'm tired of being in the shipping business, and they're all asking me the same question, which is, which retail pharmacy can I go to, Bob, to buy your product? How would you like us to answer their question? And he sat there for about 30 seconds. It's a really long time when you're in one of these meetings. And he started laughing. He said, okay, you're in. Just like that. So, and no, he did not mention slotting fees. And I'll bet $1 you know what the next bullet's going to pop up here is going to say. What gave us that negotiating power? Okay, so we had impressive growth in sales, a really high reorder rate, got a lot of publicity, sold the business, everybody was happy. So, like I said, I'm a lot older than I was when I started all this. If you really want to discover the secret to accelerated aging, start a company. But before I tell you what I learned, I'd love to hear you guys summarize a couple of things you think I should have learned from these experiences. So, since you all are in the process of drawing up an executive summary, and some of you are in fact planning on making a living in the entrepreneurial community, this is a meaningful question. What should I have learned from these experiences? Yes, sir.
Well, channels are a problem for lots of businesses. I mean, lots of people have stumbled across this, and why do you want to make all the mistakes yourself, I guess is the...
Why would I want to?
Make the mistakes yourself. In other words, this is one thing where perhaps getting a seasoned channel guy to talk to you, not pro bono, might have made sense.
Okay. Make sure we understand the distribution channel. Phrased more simply, make sure we know how our customers are going to actually get our product, and make sure we understand the economics of how that works. Okay? Good suggestion. You're right, I should have learned that. Yes, what else?
I think knowing your product, knowing exactly what you're selling and doing. Like you said, not selling a bar, you're selling security. And once you understand what you're selling, then you know how to go about selling it to the right people.
Bullseye. That's very, very important. Understand what you're really selling. Once you get to that point, by the way, you can summarize it in no time flat, and all the lights go on. People say, oh, I get it. I mean, there's this transmission. Very clear. Okay? Anything else? Yes, sir.
Customers are power. Leverage them wherever you can.
Okay. Customers have power. They sign your paycheck. Leverage them wherever you can.
I guess I'd understood that slightly differently. Even to say paying customers are power that you can use to leverage the next stage in the distribution chain.
Very well said. Paying customers are a power you can use to leverage your way into the next connection. Okay. Score. What are they really buying? If I ask you, who is this for, and you say it's for everyone, put that on your tombstone. Because I hate to break it to you, if it's for everyone, it's not for anyone. Reference my remarks about selling air. Also, and this is harsh, nobody actually needs your product or service. They might need the benefits. I don't need these glasses. I need to see better. As it turns out, I hired glasses. Some of you hired contact lenses, and a couple of you may have hired the surgeon to do that LASIK procedure. But what we were all going for was the same benefit, seeing better. So I like to segment markets a little bit because I can't afford to go after the unwashed masses. What I want to know is who's feeling the pain right now because they're most motivated. Who's worried? Who's kind of paying attention? And where's the graveyard? And then, being a simple-minded individual, start there. 2 reasons. 1, if I can't succeed there, I don't have a business. So put a bullet in it and move on. Second, this is a great place to start. Using this gentleman's point, I can take these paying customers and leverage my way down. Also, one of my goals as an entrepreneur is to sell the business. So if I can demonstrate traction at the top, somebody else will come along and say, well, we have more money than you do, Bob. So we'll buy it and we'll move into those next couple zones where there's a big market. Make sense? Yes? No? Okay. If you're trying to get people to buy something new, you're changing their habits, really hard. Some of the drivers for change, pain, fear, greed, vanity. My lovely wife will buy a little metal tube that's got stuff inside it that's paraffin and a little bit of coloring and a couple of fragrances, probably 28, 29 cents worth of stuff. It's called lipstick. Pays 10 times that. Strike that, 100 times that. Vanity. Well, that's a good thing, right? But if you're trying to tell people to just pay attention to their cholesterol because they ought to, you're selling virtue, and I got to tell you, that's a tough sell. Pain, fear, greed, vanity. Okay. Some of you are at the Sloan School taking marketing courses, and I have great respect for them. But if you have to sleep through the semester, I'll give you power marketing in 2 steps. Find out what your customer wants, give it to them. Class dismissed, right? Okay, you got to be focused. Pick a couple market segments you can dominate, succeed, and I hated the boss that laid this one on me because I never forgot it. He said, Jones, there is no hocus pocus that takes the place of focus. It's like, oh, months of therapy. But it's true. Okay, so instead of promoting your product, remember what I said, turn the telescope around? Find your customer. Who is this for? Ways to do that? Talk to them. You can read reports. You can learn a lot from reports, but you're not done. Until I talked to customers, I was all set to put the word diabetes on Nightbite, and I would have single-handedly killed the business. Know them. What are they buying now to solve the problem? To whom do they go for advice? There's a great quote out there. It's attributed to Henry Ford. He said, Henry, did you ever ask your customers what they wanted? Henry said, oh, hell, if I'd asked them what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. It was Henry's genius to figure out that's called a car. Okay, I am going to spend a minute or two on this. There was a brief period of time when I was in one of my various company incarnations in the business of weight loss. And I spent some time following conversational threads, actually about 3 straight days, following conversational threads through one of the message boards. And I'm rarely accused of being sensitive, but I was practically in tears by the time I got done with a couple of days of this. What I'm about to show you are real quotes excerpted from this as to why these people wanted to lose weight. Well, I don't like how I look or feel. I'm so sad. I feel so lost and alone. I am mad that food that passes my lips betrays me. I want to feel like a real woman, sexy. I want to be healthy. I'm supposed to be a pillar of support for others, yet I have none of my own. I'm afraid of catching diabetes. Well, you don't catch diabetes, but you understand what she's saying here. I have severe leg pain, swelling, high blood pressure. I'm 21 and I've never even gone on a date. I looked in the mirror and saw what I looked like. I don't like how I look. There's some real emotional needs here. Pain, remember my motivators? I'm not trying to be manipulative. I wanted to understand these people. I'm sorry to say I've never personally had a problem being overweight. So this was a new world for me. I am to the point of facing serious health problems. I'm tired of it being a constant issue. So they want to lose weight or manage their weight as part of a healthy lifestyle, but they don't want dieting. I spent about 3 days in a freezing cold basement of a church in Detroit talking to fat ladies. In conjunction with Procter & Gamble, who properly determined that most of the shopping was done by women, and if we were going to talk about weight management products, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you can't say the word diet because, as they explained to me, if I've been on one diet, I've been on 4 diets or 5 diets. I failed every damn one of them. If I think about another diet, I think I'm going to fail. I don't need anything else to lower my self-esteem. Okay? Well, how about that? Exercise. You think I'm going to put on a pair of pants and go stand on the treadmill next to Susie Cream Cheese in her full heat makeup? I don't think so. Inconvenience. I don't want to be hungry. And you know those diet foods that come in the cardboard box? Well, the box tastes better than the foods. I'm not doing it. And they've been scammed. This is a real bust. The FTC busted every one of the companies I'm about to put up. Soap that dissolves your fat and washes it down the drain while you're in the shower. Inserts for your shoes, which through acupressure simulate jogging 6 miles a day. Yours for $24.95. Acupressure rings, same story. Exercise in a bottle. There have been so many scams out there. These people have a huge emotional need, legitimate, and there's so many people preying on them. So they're fundamental questions. Will this one work for me? How and why should I believe you? Give me a reason to believe. And if you get past that stop sign, then they want to know, well, how's it taste? Is it expensive? Where can I get it? Block and tackle questions. But the first ones are fundamental. An example of stuff we learned just talking to and listening to our customers. Okay, sad truth, you do have competition, regardless of how novel your idea is. Because if they aren't spending money now to address the problem, probably not a problem. Whatever they're buying now is your competition. So ask yourself, and this one may call for some quiet introspection, how are you better than what they've got? Customers do buy value. You can charge more if you deliver more. We actually had Nestle come to our office, and M&M Mars, John Mars, came to our office. Nestle said, Bob, you guys are making a candy bar for 25 cents and selling it for $1. If we make it for 25 cents, we sell it for 39 cents. How are you doing this? The answer is because it does more, so we can charge more. I'm going to skip that. Okay. You may have determined that you have something which people need. My Regain was something that people needed, but they didn't want it, and I failed utterly. In the early stages, it really doesn't matter who needs it. What matters is who wants it. And if you can't find them, you can't sell your product. And unfortunately, if you can't communicate your product benefits within seconds, you can't sell it. So I've become a believer in the 30-second sell, now fashionably called an elevator pitch. The elevator pitch usually applies to how do you raise capital. I think the 30-second sell is slightly different. How do you tell the story? How do you convey the value to a prospective customer in a short period of time? If you can't summarize it, of course, you will have trouble raising capital. So, I think we're going to try this in a minute or so with some of you brave volunteers. But there's, just to try and set the stage, there are some questions you should be asking yourself before you give your attempt at a 30-second sell to the audience. What's broke that my product fixes? Who cares? And I don't mean that dismissively, I mean who specifically cares? Who's trying to fix that problem? How many of them are they? Do they have any money? I've spent a fair amount of my life as a working musician, and I can tell you they don't have any money. There's no way I'm going to try and sell something to them. How do I find them? How are they solving the problem now, and why is what I have better? So, let's have one or two of you guys. Now, let me set the stage. I followed the mandates of leadership and went first and humiliated myself, telling you in great detail how my Regain adventure failed utterly. So I told you about my character flaws, I told you about my business failures, etc. So, and I spent a long time at it. So you shouldn't be shy about stepping forward and telling us a little bit about your idea. Is it a dog walking service for two-income couples who can't get out in the middle of the day to let little Fifi run? Is it a smart drug that will cure cancer? Tell us what it is. Tell us what's broke that it fixes. Tell us what the benefit is, and tell us who your customers are. And we will, as a group, offer you support, maybe not love, but support, and some feedback to try and help you improve the pitch. Now, day after tomorrow, I will be on stage in front of one of the local angel investment groups, one of the larger ones. I survived the screening process, but I'm raising capital for my fourth company. So this is not an unrealistic simulation. I will ask you to spend 30 seconds. I got to spend 20 minutes. So, I hope I didn't intimidate you. You guys are all smart, and I hope none of you is bashful. Who'd like to step forward and tell us a little bit about? Go ahead, sir. Come down. Come. No, come down front. All right. If you ever get in a situation where somebody hands you a microphone, you should notice something, which is this mic does not pick me up unless I'm talking right down the barrel of the microphone. So if you see speakers like this, forget about it. Talk into the mic. Okay, sir, you're on.
My current product is being used by 600,000 users worldwide, and it's a virtual desktop that you can take anywhere. For example, if you have an iPhone and you have a Mac and you have a PC, you can download our virtual desktop, so you can take your applications, you can take your files anywhere worldwide. You can just log in and you can use it. Our product, it's free, and it's called Expadian. It's expadian.com. And currently we are offering a premium version that you can download for free, so you don't get advertisement on your machine.
Not bad. So, who would care to comment on that?
I'm still not sure what a virtual desktop is. I know about virtualization, I know about sharing, but when you say virtual desktop, concept doesn't pop into mind.
Okay, and that's representative of the investor groups that you will talk with as well. I can stand up and say branch chain amino acids, and 2 people in the room will know what I'm talking about, and the rest of them will say, huh? Right? Okay, so a worthwhile comment. Yes, ma'am?
So I wanted to know what problem is it solving, and why would it be for me?
Ah! She would like to know what problem he is solving and why is it useful for her. Okay, let me say, this is a very strong positive. Your very first sentence was, my product is being used by 600,000 customers worldwide. That has a lot of merit. First, because you used my favorite word in your first sentence, which answers the question, do you have them, do you know you need them, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not talking major surgery. We're talking slight refinements. But I agree that it would be better if he had said, many users face this problem and right now have only cumbersome and clumsy solutions to solve it. We have, and it has been validated in the marketplace already to the extent that 600,000 consumers are already using it. It is called a virtual desktop, and here's why.
We have it in the executive summary. So
Okay, nice job. Thank you. All right. Somebody else, please. Are you volunteering, Philip? Step right up. I'm sorry. I apologize if we're interrupting those of you who are getting a nice nap at the moment.
All right, so Helios is a do-it-yourself heliostat kit that was designed to inspire high school students to be introduced to STEM fields early. Helios is a do-it-yourself heliostat kit that was designed to inspire high school students to be interested in STEM fields early. The issue is that STEM fields in colleges are generally undiverse both culturally and financially, and we designed a system that is up on Kickstarter now named Helios to inspire students to explore STEM in a low-risk environment before they have to apply to engineering programs. Oh, we have 4 backers so far, and we've been live for 2 days.
All right. Who would care to offer Philip a comment? Yes, sir.
Helios, you just told me what it did. How does it do it?
Okay. This gentleman says, Helios, you tell us what it does, but you don't tell us how it does it.
STEM research in middle school, high school, how? Is it a training kit for a teacher? Is it a computer application? Is it free? Is it I signed up for it? Is it what? I understand your pitch of what you're trying, the problem of addressing the diversity and introducing STEM technology at a younger age, but how? Tell me how.
All right, I'm going to pile on a little bit. I'm usually supportive in these matters, but I am going to pile on here by echoing this gentleman's comment. Because I come through the healthcare tradition, when he says STEM, what do I think? Thank you. Saw a great cartoon, by the way, of 2 snowmen talking to each other, and snowflakes were falling, and one of them said stem cells, which gets funnier as you think about it. So when he says STEM, all right, so remember one of Joe's slides about why business plans fail? Too much jargon? We do it unconsciously. So be careful of that. So we've addressed we don't know how you do what you do. We've addressed the question of jargon, and I'm not sure that we heard Philip state a problem which he purports to solve. Well, sort of. The problem was helping students get motivated in STEM technologies early. But I have to ask a harsh question. So what? Who cares about that? And I'm not suggesting that there's not an answer. I'm just suggesting I didn't hear that. So it could be refined, I think, if you said, I'm going to make something up, all right? I'll probably completely butcher your idea, so forgive me. If you said, our country is suffering from a shortage of people who are trained in science, technology, engineering, management, and part of the problem is we don't know how to get school kids engaged in these subjects at an early enough age that they come to esteemed institutions like this to further their education. We have developed a way to, and proceed. And here's a quick synopsis of how it works. It's animation and it's blah, blah, blah. Love to tell you more. Okay? Let's give Philip a hand. One more? I hope you guys are finding this halfway useful. Yes, sir. Come on down. And we can probably put you on this mic.
Can I do this one?
Yep.
Good opportunities to
We have time for a couple more, you think?
some team members too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sir. Step right up.
Okay, so 7 years ago when I was a high school student, so I had to went through hundreds of practice books, exercise books, for taking the college entrance exam. So, but I noticed that I have to solve some repeated problems which I have known. But before I do it, I don't know I have. So before I do it, I don't know if I know it. So we are developing a software to help students to pick problems which are suitable for them. So it's faster, so and it's efficient. It's also, although it is old-fashioned, it's called adaptive learning, but our algorithm is it's from, how can I say, it's from MIT. I can't tell.
Well, all right, you're allowed to say that. Okay, who'd like to offer this gentleman a comment? Okay, did he tell us the problem? I think so. Did he discuss the solution?
Yeah. But I don't have time.
Well, hang on. Let me ask the audience. Did he discuss the solution? Not so clearly? Okay, there's some confusion. Let me ask you a pointed question. If you walked out of here 10 minutes from now, could you tell people what this gentleman's business idea is? Okay.
You mentioned the algorithm at the end.
Mentioned?
You mentioned the algorithm in the end. The word algorithm. You also mentioned that it's a software solution.
Yes. So he has a software solution for adaptive learning. All right. Well, I guess we got the pieces in there. Not to overburden your pitch, but if you can work in, and I didn't ask this, so you're off the hook, but if you can work in there a sentence or two on how you're going to make money. I ended up at one of these god-awful, stand by 1 second. I went to one of these god-awful networking events. You know, I'm Susie from accounting. And I bumped into a guy naturally by the table with the refreshments. And he was proudly explaining to me what he does. Well, we have these ways of making like icons that will express themselves in 3D. And if you like your dog, you can come up with an icon that represents your dog, and you can use it in all of these things. I said, wow, how do you make money doing that? Well, we kind of haven't figured that out yet. I thought, okay, and you're at a meeting where there are investors and venture capitalists. You might have some homework to do. So, let's give this man a hand. Thank you. You think one more? All right. The boss says we got time for one more. So, who'd like to volunteer? Or maybe a couple. Well, this man back here in the red hat. It's 8:44. All right. Thank you, by the way, all of you, for being not only brave but also listening critically. You may well be in this very spot one day soon. So, go ahead. Tell us.
So in the world today, a lot of creative people have been guided towards making money instead of following their dreams of becoming a rock star. What we're trying to do is we're developing a franchise model to allow people to take vacation as well as actually create music. So we're thinking of a bed and breakfast that also has a studio in it. We want to make money by actually owning a part of the recording, but most likely just filling a gap in this all-inclusive kind of vacation model. that caters to people that are wannabe rock stars that are probably already making money and just don't have the time to follow their passion.
Okay. Well, I started playing blues a bunch of years ago when I decided I looked silly in spandex. So I might actually not be his customer, but I do recognize the market need. They have these fantasy cruises and stuff where you go hook up with, 2 members of KISS or whatever and blow your brains out for a week or two. Okay, questions, comments, pardon me, from you guys, because your response was animated, as was your presentation. Nice going. Yes, sir.
Any idea about the actual market?
Yeah, we're actively pursuing that, looking into the research.
Okay, that means no.
Well, actually, excuse me, can I get a poll here? How many of you actually play an instrument? Oh, that looks like about 60% of the crowd here.
That means 30.
And how many of you are actually pursuing professional careers in music?
That means nobody. It's a terrible way to make a living, trust me. All right, more comments from you guys, though, on his presentation. Please, if we were to help him refine an already pretty good 30-second summary, what advice could we offer him? Yes, sir.
Couples go on cruises together. What about wives and girlfriends?
Well, in the case that the significant other doesn't, in the case that the significant other doesn't play a music, then we're planning on hosting this in a beautiful setting where they can enjoy nature or possibly a spa experience.
All right. A follow-on question to that would be, what evidence do you have that Mrs. will go for this?
So currently, Virgin, can I answer?
Yeah.
So currently, Virgin, which is a big major label,
Yeah.
actually has a studio in Jamaica that they use to send their top-tier artists to. And they've opened that up into the luxury market, and it costs $600 a month. We're planning on making that accessible for all of us who actually want to go there and don't have time to sort of pursue this dream. So how many of you want to combine vacation and making music or pursuing your true passion?
Oh, you got a very limited market, sport.
That's a couple.
All right. Any other comments before we turn this man loose? In the back, yes, sir.
As a professional, as an engineer who did music through high school, that was my job. With 2 recordings, what evidence do you have that time is actually the limiting factor at a vacation site rather than time to practice?
That's a great question. So what we're looking into is actually understanding all the infrastructure that's needed for you to go from just having an idea and jamming with your friends in your garage to actually using a studio staffed with all the latest equipment and a professional recording engineer with an actual outcome of having a test.
Clearly demonstrate how bad you are. Not the voice of cynicism, I'm sorry. Let me offer a suggestion or two, and then, with your permission, one more. Okay. Investors are comforted if they think there are parallels to the business model you're going to engage in. And so if you could say something like, there's a thriving business in baseball fantasy camps for people who play ball on the weekends but would like nothing better than to go spend a week with Yastrzemski, right? So there's a thriving business there. There's a pretty good business going in rock and roll fantasy camps. And we would like to extend that already demonstrably successful model by, and our market is, and we believe that there are about this many people, and we would offer them these services. And it would include coaching, because one of the things that comes with high quality studio recording is it catches every mistake. And suddenly, your ego gets totally deflated. And you think, I thought I was shredding. It sounded like I was having a seizure. Nice job. Let's give him a hand. All right, one more. Grab this mic, sir, and you may want to elevate the stand a little bit. Remember or just take the mic. All right, all right. No Kanye West, please.
Thanks. All right, so we'll end up the night on, we had one for music, and this is about drinking, which is maybe where some of us will be going after this. So how would you like to try a $100 bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet? Would you try it if it was $70 or $60? How about $50? At mycrew.com, you pick the couple of parameters like grape variety and location, and then you name the price. Think Priceline for wine. We provide value to customers because they have access to a wide variety of wines at the prices that they want to pay. People like me who don't have a lot of money but want to dabble in fine wine. Provide the value to producers because the fact is they'll put that $100 bottle of Cabernet in your hand for $30 or $40 if for two things. One, they don't have to advertise that price, so it's a non-searchable price. And two, they have the ability to get a lifetime customer. So that's why at mycrew.com, we bring together customers and producers for fine wine.
Okay. Your turn. Comments? Joost?
I think the analogy was great. Why not start with that? We want to create the price line for wine. That means X.
I think, to Joost's point, I think if that were your first sentence, there would be a lot you would not have to say. So that's good. But he did get it in there, and we did all connect the dots once he said that, right? I think most of us did anyway. What other comments? Yes, sir.
You could kind of create a problem a little bit by saying wine buying is expensive and difficult, and then you could, solve that problem for people.
Okay, or you could fold that into why do people use Priceline? Because they'd rather get this for less. We're bringing Priceline, the Priceline model to purchasing wine, which would incorporate that. You were about to offer a comment as well.
I would ask, well, we know that there might be shipping, regulations about shipping alcohol across state lines.
Okay, that question, which is would there be regulatory issues with shipping wine across state lines, probably would get addressed after the 30-second sell. The goal of the 30-second sell is to cause you to say, ooh, tell me more. Right. So in that regard, I have a question, which is once you said price line for wine, I got it. The question that I have, and you'll forgive me, but it is the topic of my talk tonight, is how are you going to find your customers? How will you let people know that this service exists? How will you target the people for whom this is uniquely designed? So if you could lob in, not now, because I want the mic back. If you could lob in a sentence about that in your talk, I think it would, there are people who understand the Priceline model. We've brought the Priceline model to wine. We're going to reach those consumers as follows, and we're going to make money this way. I'd love to tell you more. Pretty powerful. Okay, let's give him a hand. Okay, I have this quaint notion that class should end on time. So, Joe, I might have to go low-tech here, pal. Oh, we got something that's popped up here. Well, the hell with them. Okay. Since I know you're dying to know. There's somewhere between 50 and 70 million people in the United States who don't get enough sleep at night. That's from the Center for Disease Control. That causes hormonal imbalances, which are linked to obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and stroke. We've developed a 2.5-ounce beverage that helps you sleep at night. Since I'm in the medical nutrition business, it's just food ingredients, each of which is supported by published clinical trials and peer-reviewed journals. This should look familiar. I said, how do I find people who are having trouble sleeping at night? Answer, some of them are actually seeing a clinician and paying for help. Others are looking for help where they can find it. Some are moderately interested, and some I just can't afford to go after. I'm reaching the clinicians first. It turns out that the head of my scientific team kicked off the new season of Dr. Oz on September 10th. She's one of his medical advisors. He sent her a note last week asking if she'd come back on the air and talk about something related to weight loss. When the time comes, we will be able to go public. And for what it's worth, I actually have been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Business Week, the Washington Post, CNBC, et cetera, et cetera. When we have a good story, we will be able to tell it. But we're starting with the clinical channel. And our model, promote to the dietitians and nurses, recommend it to the patients, they'll purchase the product. If they like it, they'll purchase some more, and they'll tell the clinician who says, finally, something with which they comply. It's going to cost us about 75 cents to make it. We're going to sell it for $3. Generous gross margin. Phase 1, we'll fulfill it ourselves, require an inside sales force. This should look familiar. When I stand up in front of the investors, I can say I've done this before. That makes them comforted. This database that we built with Nightbite, 60,000 people in 18 months. This one looks like that. We hope to do it again. So, yes?
Is the product to help people sleep better, or is it to alleviate the side effects of lack of sleep?
2 things. Go to sleep sooner. 3 things. If you wake up in the middle of the night looking at the ceiling, go back to sleep sooner. Wake up refreshed with no hangover.
So it's to help people sleep better.
And there are a bunch of hormonal imbalances that get normalized as a function of you just getting enough sleep. Turns out if you go from 5.5 hours sleep a night to 8 hours sleep a night and do nothing else different, you'll lose 12 pounds a year. How about that? Yes, sir?
Do you have a patent like you did the previous time for the cake ingredients?
Application is en route now. This combination of ingredients is novel and non-obvious to a person of ordinary skill in the art. And I'm going to cut you guys off for a moment so I can finish on time. I'll stay put. Love to hear some questions. So, final questions for you as you think about your fledgling business. Where do my customers go for help, and exactly how will I reach them? Who's my first customer? Paint me a picture. This might be useful for you and for several of you. Who is my first customer? Describe that customer. In my case, I might tell you it's a 50-year-old woman plus or minus 5 years, perimenopausal, mildly overweight, pre-diabetic, having trouble sleeping. What evidence do I have that they'd be willing to pay for the product? How much will they pay? Where will they buy it? And you need a sort of psychotic person in your organization to be responsible for sales. But to Joe's point, if you're not comfortable selling, you may have picked the wrong field. You guys have about 3 minutes if you have any last-minute questions. Yes, sir?
For your last product, what are you doing to differentiate yourself from all the other sleep products?
We are the only one out there whose ingredients are supported by clinical trials published in peer-reviewed journals, and there's biochemistry that supports how it puts you to sleep, as opposed to just containing herbs that promote serenity. Nope, it's not. It'll be available directly over the counter. It's just a food. The idea is a little 2.5-ounce shot that you can throw in your briefcase for a business trip. Changing time zones, sleeping in unfamiliar places, et cetera, help you go to sleep at night. Yes, sir?
How do you overcome the fear that your idea may be copied by someone who has more money, more market, visibility, or a bigger player?
Did you guys hear that question? All right, as an entrepreneur, how did I protect myself from the possibility that an outfit out there that has more money, greater resources, more expertise, better looking, more brains than me would come and steal the business? Answer is I'm going to sell the company to one of those people because I can move faster than they can. I can fail without their handprints on it. I can debug it. I can demonstrate reorders, and then they will overpay me. That is their business model. I've already talked to them. I began at the end of the story and called the senior managers at the prospective acquisition companies and said, I've got this idea. Actually, I had about 20 ideas. And when I said, what do you think of it? And if I heard crickets and snoring, I'd say, okay, well, what about this idea? When I got to sleep, they said, ooh, tell me more. So I've got some work to do. I can't screw it up. But if I do the work, I have every confidence that this is going to sell, and hopefully for handsome multiple. I have to conclude. In summary, By the way, what are the 2 words every audience most likes to hear from a speaker? In summary, the only non-negotiable requirement for successful business is customers. You've got to provide something that's unique and important to someone, not just to the world at large. So, figure out who can't live without your product or service. Find them, tell them about it, take their money. Thank you.